Welcome back to Sanderson. Welcome back to Brandersation.
A conversation about Brandon Sanderson.
Would you like to destroy some evil today?
Yes. So, spoilers in this episode for Brandon Sanderson's original Mistborn trilogy, Era 1. Gonna be spoiling all the good stuff, so
Yes.
don't watch it if you haven't read them, because you want to read them.
We particularly wanted to discuss friendship, particularly that revolving around Vin, the main character, because she is the one that she goes from being this really scarred and traumatized young girl to becoming a lot more confident, believing in the goodness of people and trusting in them. And so we wanted to explore like what changed and who helped her get there.
Bingo.
And you guessed it, it's friendship. I don't remember how old she is, maybe 14, 15?
I think she's 15. I think she either turned 16 in the first book or is about to. She's in that era of her life.
Yeah.
Early teens.
She doesn't have any parents. Her mother went crazy. She had a younger sister who I think her mom killed.
Yeah.
Because her mom went crazy. And her brother, so she lived with her brother for a while. By the time the book one starts, the brother's dead, I think. Or no, he ran off. I think he abandoned her, right?
In reality, he was captured and killed.
Yeah, okay. So she doesn't have any family. She lives with this thievery crew.
Thievery crew. For some reason, I'm just imagining, thievery crew next to, a men's warehouse.
Yeah, she's interning at a thievery crew.
She's pretty much just constantly paranoid. Also knows that she can't really survive alone and needs a crew. But definitely does not trust or like this crew in any capacity.
Yeah, and she'll hear the voice of her brother basically reminding her, you can't trust anybody, everyone will abandon you, everyone hates you, you're worthless, all this stuff. It could be words either that he said to her or she thinks them, but they're in his voice. But she hears his voice in her head and it's all negative. And
she does place a small amount of trust in one crew member who immediately betrays that trust.
Yeah, so when Kelsier comes around and wants her to join his crew, and we already know we like Kelsier from the very beginning.
Yeah, because he's a boss. We like cool people.
So she's thinking of joining his crew because she's kind of curious about him and his backstory in her environment. She really can't trust anybody in her situation.
Yeah, and I think her first interaction with Kelsier after he has saved her life is when he wants to test whether she's a Mistborn by giving her the vial with metals in it, and she's like, you drink half first.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I did just save your life, but this is the way she operates.
He can tell that she's an Allomancer. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have any idea what Allomancy is. Kelsier knows exactly what it is, and he knows that he wants her for his crew, to overthrow the Lord Ruler.
Yeah. Not so much the gang of thieves that we thought.
Yeah.
More an active rebellion.
So she joins Kelsier's crew and from the get-go is kind of shocked at the way they treat her. It's a completely different environment and she meets all these guys, Ham, Breeze, Clubs.
Mm-hmm. Dachshund,
yeah.
Spook,
yeah. So she meets all these guys and they're just they're way more relaxed. They sit around and they drink and they tease each other and she's just kind of welcomed into the crew but not really asked too many questions or anything, and she's just kind of she's even more suspicious in a way because it's not the type of environment she's used to.
Yeah, arguably the most manipulative thing is that Breeze uses allomancy to get her to bring him a glass of wine or something.
Yeah.
And as soon as he's told to stop, he does. And she's more irritated than genuinely mistrustful because he's that kind of person.
Exactly. And also Kelsier takes her out and he's teaching her allomancy and giving her all this information, and clearly he's giving her power, and she's confused why someone would give her that ability to harness the allomancy. And also Sazed is her servant in the when she's pretending to be the Lord Renault's daughter, niece, says it is her servant. But even when he's not play acting as her servant, he is kind of like,
yeah, he's instructing her, kind of like, I don't know, like a mentor in a very different sense than Kelsier is, who's like very hands-on mentoring, and says is just like there for wisdom and advice, and like the two of them kind of co-mentoring Vin, and everyone is like helping in that respect by giving her advice on specific types of powers, or just on like the state of the world in general. But I'd say Kelsier and Sazed take the lead. Both of them are so respectful, which seems strange because she's a kid. They're both grown men who pretty much would only need to like use her for their own ends if they wanted to, but they don't. They treat her as a person.
They see Vin as being helpful for their mission, but Kelsier also just grows quite close to her throughout that too, which is really touching, because he has similar reasons to never trust anybody either, because he is of the understanding that his wife, Mare, betrayed him back when he was first trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler, and that he was then put into the pits of Hathsin, and, you know, legendary that he was able to escape. You'd understand if he were like Vin and was also like, I'm never going to trust anybody ever again, because if you can't trust your wife, who can you trust? But he's actually quite trusting in Vin and in all his friends, which is inspiring to her.
Yeah, it's a huge turning point for her just to see the way that they interact with each other, which seems like such a small thing, but they, from the very beginning, when they save and recruit her, it's immediately more than just, oh, you can be useful to us. Like, they're helping her. And, like, they don't have to.
Yeah.
And that's, to her, like, why are they treating me like this? What's the end game of this, that they're being nice for no reason?
I don't remember when Kelsier tells her, but I think she is questioning, when he tells her the story of Mare, she is questioning how he could ever trust anybody ever again. And the quote, I forget exactly what the quote is, but
it's not worth never trusting anybody, like, if you're just afraid of trusting and being betrayed, and that he would rather place trust in someone who's going to betray him than never place trust in anybody and just live in fear. I don't think he tells her about Mare. I think someone else does, potentially Sazed.
Oh, that's...
And she asks him about it, kind of point blank at some point, like, I know what happened. How are you the way that you are? How are you always smiling, always friendly, always trusting, always kind to everybody in this crew when this horrible thing happened to you? And his response
is great, because, especially from Vin's perspective, it's like, well, it's easier not to trust anybody because then you save your life. But we see from the very beginning, Vin is living in paranoia, and she's also in an environment where it wouldn't be safe to trust the people around her. But then when she's able to manage to get out and make friends, like true friends, she's able to understand what that would be like. And Kelsier is definitely risking a lot by trusting so many people with his plan. But for him, you know, he's also friends with them, and for him he would just rather trust them and be betrayed than to never trust anybody.
And I think he even says, even though I know she betrayed me, I still love her. And Vin, in turn, talks about how terrible her brother was, who, even though he saved her from their mother, he beat her constantly, was constantly critical. And every day she thought about how much she hated him, but she still loves him. And he's gone. And it's just another sort of traumatizing reason why you wouldn't want to trust anybody. If the person you think you can trust, who's still horrible to you, disappears. Joining the crew is, like, really the best possible thing for her, to be in an environment where it's safe for her to be able to trust and be able to form strong relationships and friendships with these people.
Yeah.
And also become a Mistborn, which is, you know, a nice bonus.
I love how he just becomes a bit of a father figure for her. in that he's taking care of her and he's teaching her allomancy, but he also, there's that one moment that I love where she's first getting ready to be Velette, the niece, and Sazed is cutting her hair, and Kelsier walks in and he says something like, "Oh, nice haircut, you look good," or something like that. And it's just like a sort of shocking thing to her because no one's ever complimented her on her appearance, but she's like a 15-year-old teenage girl, and she gets this compliment, and he even says maybe to Doxin or Sazed.
I think to Doxin, probably.
Yeah. He says something like, "Oh, I think it's important to build her up a little bit, make her feel more confident because she's so squirrely and lacks so much confidence because, why would she think highly of herself?" And not necessarily like in a prideful way, but more so like that she has dignity and that she's worth, being treated well. And so I just love that moment.
Yeah. I love Kelsier's way with people. Mm-hmm. Like, he can be manipulative, for sure.
He's definitely not perfect. Yeah. But his taking Vin under his wing is definitely pivotal for her. And then she actually then teaches him some things when she finally calls him out for his he just hates all noblemen, thinks they're all evil, even though he is in a much more privileged position than the other Ska. And so when she tells them about Elend, I think. Yeah, Vin saved his life. Mm-hmm. And Kelsey was like, "Why would you risk your life for saving him? He's just a nobleman." Even though he knows that Vin likes Elend. And she finally just blows up on him for, what kind of person are you that you're going to have all these double standards and you don't even know at all what it's like to be Ska. And that's a huge moment for Vin. And I don't think she would have gotten there if she didn't have those friendships initially that would allow her to have that voice to speak up finally when she's just like, "I've had enough of your hypocrisy." It's strangely enough when you have really strong friendships that you can safely just tear into someone and just blow up at them. It's great. Yeah, well, she definitely reveals the hypocrisy of the situation. And Kelsier seems to kind of realize it. Like, he apologizes and he goes up and talks to her. She's so upset. And, I mean, if you're going to have any type of true friendship, that's going to involve telling someone when you think what they're doing is wrong. Yeah. And for him to apologize and admit, "You're right, we don't know what we're talking about," is huge for him as well and huge for her. Yeah, so I think they both improve each other. And that's what this whole, we're mainly focusing on friends and having friends and good friendships is kind of what helps people, heal. Like, the best of friends that you have around are going to be helping you become a better person because they'll do two things for you, hopefully, I think. And one of them is by being your friend, they're showing you that you're someone worthy to, be around, hang out with. And also they'll support you and cheer you on and affirm you. But they won't affirm you if you're doing something that they think is wrong. Vin and Kelsier really trust each other, and so that's a really good moment. And it doesn't hurt their friendship in any ways, and in fact it increases it. And as a result, he views her basically as the daughter that he never had, which is very touching. Yeah, and that's also like why he saves Elend toward the end of the book. Mm-hmm. And he's just gonna let it go, and then he just thinks, well, she loves him, and then risks everything to save Elend and help him to not die. And then there's that just pivotal moment where Kelsier sees the Spook and Renault and all the people involved in whatever that mission was that got caught by the Inquisitors, that they're going to be executed in the square. Then he starts to run to go and save them, and Vince stops him, and she's saying, "You can't go. Like, there's no way you'll survive this fight. If you go fight, you're going to die. And if you die, the plan won't work, and the Lord Ruler will still be in charge." And he kind of gives her a disappointed look and says something like, "You still have a lot to learn about friendship, and someday I hope you know what that is." Let me see. I think it was page... Oh my gosh, I didn't know you had the book right there with you. I know. I was hoping I could get the quote from memory, but
I'm pretty embarrassed by some of my paraphrases sometimes.
I know sometimes I'm like, oh, my paraphrase actually changed the meaning. He says, you still have some things to learn about friendship, Vin. I hope someday you realize what they are. And she's just, like, she's kind of not offended by that, but just kind of shocked and hurt because now he's going to go, and sure enough, he does give his life for his friends.
I think you find out afterward he kind of had planned for dying because there's that letter for Vin from him.
Yeah.
And basically all of his, like, inspiring all the people and then very publicly dying for them allows her to go around to all of these people and say, like, all right, meet in the square where the survivor was killed. We're going to go destroy the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, he ends up, being powerful even after he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up...
He's like Obi-Wan.
Yeah, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Yeah, no, and I think that Vin, even though it's heartbreaking that Kelsier dies, it is just another part of Vin's journey in understanding what it means to be a friend and what it means to be a good person. And that we see that influence then as the books move on. So the majority of this focus has been on the first book, but we see in the next few books, like, Vin makes huge headway into overcoming her lack of trusting people.
There's even a moment that really hit me on my reread of Mistborn, was that she kind of, in a way, seems to see Kelsier dying as a betrayal, in a sense.
Yeah,
like,
he leaves her behind.
He like, how could he just abandon us like this? And Sazed is there for her in that moment. And it's like, I mean, obviously not a replacement type thing going on, but, like, there are still people here who are there for her and who are carrying on with their plans and their hopes. But Sazed really comes through for her in the late game of Final Empire.
Yeah, they all kind of rally together. It's great. And you had something to say about Tensoon, right? Like her friendship with him.
It's pivotal in Will of Ascension. Probably it's my favorite storyline in the whole book. The relationship that Vin builds with Tensoon, who she thinks is Orasur, who is the Kandra in the crew. And early in Will of Ascension, I think she and Elend, like, find some bones or something and realize that there's a Kandra impersonating one of the crew. And after all of the, like, trust built up with all of these people, suddenly thinking one of them is a traitor, one of them is going to ruin everything, is, like, the worst possible thing that could happen. But she builds over the course of the book a very strong friendship with Orasur. Even though she pretty strongly disliked him from the beginning, she asks him to wear the bones of a dog rather than a human, which is, like, I think he found pretty offensive, but
Yeah.
They do a lot together, and because of, like, the effects that healing friendships have had on her throughout the first book, she is able to have this very strong friendship with Orasur, Tensoon, who is the
one person
spy,
she shouldn't be trusting.
one person she shouldn't be trusting. And that friendship causes him to help her at the time when he's supposed to betray her. And to come over to her side because he spent all this time forming such a bond with her. And, like, that could never have happened if Vin was in the same, like, mental space of paranoia that she'd been in the first book. And she has every reason to be extremely paranoid, and she is to an extent, but it's not at the cost of, like, placing trust in people, because presumably she remembers what Kelsier was saying about trust.
And when she knows that somebody's a traitor, like, breaks her heart to think that it could be any of her friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she just can't believe that some of her friends are like that, which is just a completely, 180 from how she was at the beginning, where she would be like, okay, well, now I can't trust anybody. But instead she kind of still works through, she still hopes that everybody is trustworthy. And in some ways, and so, we've been talking about how friendship is healing. It's also redeeming in a way. Like, Tensoon was Tensoon was going to betray her, and he ends up doing the right thing. But it's through her friendship with him, with the foundation of love, like by loving him, then he becomes a better person, really. Well, better Kendra.
A better Kendra, and is able to like stand up to the other generations of Kendra when he's like put on trial. And
for not following the laws.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a fantastic character, and I just think that, it's sort of like a domino effect in a way. Kelsier's love and respect for Vin then allows her to have love and respect for other people. And, it goes both ways. Vin becomes stronger and better. She becomes a better person. And she struggles still with her brother's voice in her head. But it becomes more obvious once Ruin is introduced. Then it becomes quite clear why that is the case. So why she's hearing his voice in her head. But even if Ruin didn't exist, I think that, people everywhere, if they've been around someone, specifically someone that they love, or someone like family or friend, who is constantly telling them that they're worthless, or that they don't deserve anything, or that they can't trust anybody, or highly critical, then they're going to start believing it themselves. And I think that even though Vin has there's a particular reason why she is feeling this way. Not everyone needs like Ruin in their ear telling them that. Like, I think people will feel that way, and that's why having friends who are able to let them know their worth as a human is so important. And obviously not everyone can just be like, oh, I'll get better if I don't know why I pretended like I was looking at watch. Oh, I'll get better if I just go make a friend, because it's not
friend time.
It's not, you can't just go and make a friend. But also Vin wasn't even in a situation where she would even desire a friend, because she wouldn't even know what that was. She didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
But I just think if we want to sort of take this into a sort of life lesson thing, then being open, trusting in people and being open in people, and kind of like for Kelsier sort of expecting the best, and then maybe the worst will happen, but hoping for the best, like, will help people, meet those people that they need to bring them, to lift them up, help them become better people, help them love themselves more, because Vin really just, she has a terrible childhood.
Yeah. Speaking of like self-worth issues, I think Spook kind of has his arc in the Hero of Ages. Like, obviously if he's older than Vin, it's only by a little bit. He's also just a kid, and saw a ton of people he knows and loves get like brutally murdered at the end of Will of Ascension, including his uncle, I think, and pretty much couldn't do anything, because he's a Tin Eye, which is the like useless Mistborn power of just like, oh, I have really good vision, I have really good senses. Like, in that scenario, he couldn't help, and like, he is now at the point where he is literally causing like severe damage to his body, straining his powers to become stronger and to become like Kelsier. Mm-hmm. He's now the survivor of the flames. He's trying to be, and like succeeding pretty well, to be like a beacon of hope to people in the same way that Kelsier was, but at extreme costs to himself. Mm-hmm. And this feeling that like he's never going to be good enough, and then remembering Kelsier saying like, I named you, isn't that good enough? Remember?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely remember. I definitely shed a few tears. But yeah, he thinks that Kelsier he did all these things for everyone else, and that Spook was just forgotten. But I forget what Spook's real name is. Lestiborn's. Yeah. And
Kelsier's like, yeah, we're not doing that.
He hears Kelsier's voice saying, I named you Spook, isn't that good enough? Like, I named you. I gave you your name. And Spook, that's a turning point for Spook in not pushing himself so hard to be like Kelsier.
Yeah. And going down like a very dark route. Also due to Ruin's influence, though no one knew that at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even talked about like Elend, which is like arguably the most important friendship in her life. They balance each other out and heal each other in so many ways.
Yeah.
And like help each other become better people. And I think it's amazing that Mr. Sanderson believes in friendship and clearly sees it as like foundational to who these characters are.
Yeah, and Elend loving Vin is a way for her to recognize that she's somebody worth loving, which is just a shocking thing for her. And her loving Elend, honestly, he definitely matures a bit. I think he's a great character, but she kind of calls him to actually stand up for the things that he believes in. He's like better than some of the noblemen, and he's, you know, philosophizing, but he's just not really doing anything. And so they both help each other out, and that is definitely, you know, their romance is founded on the friendship that they have, and their friendship continues, and it's beautiful. And
they get married.
And then they get married. This is a topic that you could kind of analyze every character and their friendship with each person. But I just ultimately really wanted to focus on Vin and really just see the healing power of friendship.
Bing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on our third Brandersation. I can't even. Thank you so much. Also, I think we've been getting some views, and we really appreciate everybody who's been watching,
super
listening,
exciting.
And hope that we will be back again soon for another episode.
Yeah. Bye.